So I feel very happy to be back here today to share with you what I have been thinking about for quite a while in the past few years. Yes, I want to share a paradox or a predicament or a dilemma, whatever we call it. This is a particularly meaningful topic here because this is the place where I started my concerns and research about youth culture. We've all seen a proliferation of literacies. You know, as times change, we think that, oh, we need to enhance also media and information literacy and then digital literacy. And recently, people think that, oh, we've got so many AI tools, so we need to have AI literacy. And while I totally agree with these concerns, I'm also always wondering if we really want to help young people to acquire or to master certain skill sets in order to survive in this changing age or age when transformation is the key theme all the time. Do we really need to know what and how young people use the media or use these digital technologies in the first place? One of my research projects is to update my understanding about the youth media use throughout the years. So since 2012, I have been doing focus group interviews with different youth groups. And I couldn't do it all the time. So I have done it in 2012, 2017, 2022. And then this year, I'm currently working on another new project, which is also concerned about youth media use. To give you a quick overview in 2012, when I went out to interview different youth groups, my interest was, you know, as a old person compared to them, I have been interested in asking how they differentiate between old media and new media. And I was really eager to find out how young people use new media. But the truth is, when we use the term new media, it just shows that we are, you know, a bit outdated. But for the young people in 2012, they never really mentioned new media or old media because they didn't really have this distinction in their mind. Instead, they would keep using the words useful. So they use whatever tools that come handily for them, and they just use them. They don't really differentiate. So in this year, when I talked to different young people, especially young girls, because at that time I was also working on a project about media and gender, I realized that they still could mention a lot of television dramas or pop icons or people who were really popular, and I still shared a lot of mutual knowledge with them. But by the time in 2017, things changed totally. People I interviewed, they didn't really watch any TV dramas. I mean, the TV dramas broadcast on the channels, and they watch a lot of YouTubes. We could all imagine that. But then one keyword came popping up. It was the desire not to participate, which I found really puzzling because where as soon as we enter the digital age, we all believe that, oh, we are going to have a lot of participation because participation is kind of default. And participation is considered to be desirable and something good. But in these interviews, young people told me that they were very afraid or they were very worried if they participated actively on the social media because they were afraid that they would say something that other people do not agree, and so they will antagonize some other people. So I could already sense a strong sense of self-censorship back in 2017 because they didn't want to get into troubles through discussions in the social media. But then a few years ago in 2022, during the COVID time, I have done another round. This time I have done 10 groups of young students. They were in high schools between 13 years old to 18 years old. And many of them told me that they were very bored because of the COVID, but then they also felt stuck because of the digital media environment. And my current project is about self-care, which we don't have time to cover today, but this is just for you to have an idea. And so back to the idea of participation and boredom, I think we have to have some quick we will. In 2004, there was a very famous quote by a man called Tim O'Reilly, and he is called Prophet of the Silicon Valley, something like this, because he always made predictions about the future. In 2004, he said that when we entered Web 2.0, we are going to witness an architecture of participation. So imagine if internet is a building, this building is made up of participation. So during these first 10 years also, especially during the time when Facebook, YouTube, or other social media becomes hugely popular, we all believe that participation is something that is good and is taken for granted, and everybody will just participate in this media culture. But in my own research in the past 10 years, I realized that instead of architecture of participation, we have actually missed two keywords. I think we are having an architecture of passive and mundane participation by most young people. And for your information, my research have always been focused in the Hong Kong society, but I'm quite confident that it is quite common across different developed societies. And for this passive and mundane participation, I mean that people are, of course, visiting different social media platforms all the time. But most young people do not want to actively participate, as you know, they don't want to speak up, they don't really create a lot of content. And then for most people, this is something really ordinary, really mundane. So this is something we have to do every day to go check out what's happening in the social media. And here, of course, we are all familiar with this digital environment in which techno stress is really a key theme. We are having an overabundance of possible choices. So we have many, many different information, content, entertainment, and we found it really easy to switch between different platforms. So when you are on Red Note, maybe you get notifications from WeChat or WhatsApp, so you have to change. So you keep switching. And in this environment, our attention is always the target. People want to exploit our attention to have economic gains. And because of the media convergence, and so everything happens at the same time in the same platforms. And the problem is these conditions persist. And it is like going on and on and on without stopping. In this context, if I ask you, are you bored? I'm not asking if you are bored now. I hope you are not. But then if we are asking young people, are you bored? It seems to be an irrelevant question, because in this digital environment, if we have so many choices, if we can just change platforms over and we can just jump to another platform, would anybody be bored again? I don't need you to answer me right away, but you can check with here whether you feel bored still, even in this digital environment. And of course, boredom is an important topic, which I'm sure many psychologists and sociologists have already looked into for years. And very interestingly for me, when I entered this subject, I found it really fascinating because like when I read into psychologist literature, I realized that boredom can be a huge problem, especially if chronic boredom. So chronic boredom is you always feel bored, then it might be related to other problems like depression or delinquency or, any abnormal behavior. But the psychologists have always found that this is also okay to have state boredom because it will be passed. But when I went into sociologist literature, I realized that, boredom is so interesting. So it's not boring at all because it can inspire us about the changing social and economic and cultural conditions which shape the idea, the very concept of boredom. For your information, for example, boredom has not been used often until 1960s. So it means that people were not really bored, or they did not use the same word to describe the state of things 50 years ago. If you look from the philosophical perspective, they would tell us that, okay, boredom can be defined into a few types, like superficial boredom, when you miss a train and then you suddenly have 30 minutes of free time. So you feel bored, but this is superficial boredom. And also there is a retrospective boredom, meaning that you don't feel bored when you are doing certain things, but then when you look back, you feel bored. And finally, there is a boredom called profound boredom. So just that you just feel bored, all the time. For me, I want to make a case for this discussion here. I want to argue that now young people, maybe not only young people, but everybody, because we are also immersed into this digital environment, we are all facing digital boredom one way or the other. The good news is that in my focus group interviews, I always feel that, even young people said that they are bored, they are not chronic boredom. Yes, because we've got many choices so that they can always do other things. The problem here is that young people, they will go to media, go to the digital media environment, when they feel bored or not engaged or uninterested. And there are always so many choices for them. But then the problem is here, that this is the paradox. We ought know about attention economy so that our attention is considered to be very precious. But in order to get our attention, they have to distract us. So we are constantly distracted to devote our attention to different platforms. And also because of the emphasis on interactivity in social media, young people are very afraid of being, missed out, the fear of missing out. So they have to be constantly online in order not to miss out. Some people do want to get away from these states because they don't really want to get stuck in the digital environment. So in my interviews, I was fascinated that our young people did have many different ways to cope with these issues about being stuck. First, somebody will have set regulations, like they will limit their screen time use, like they would install apps. I'm not sure whether you know there is some digital app that when you install in your phone, they will calculate the time you are using the phone. So if you are not using it, they will help you to plant a tree. So if you keep not using it, you will plant a lot of trees. And eventually, if it reaches certain amount, they will grow a real tree for you. Okay, so they install these apps or similar apps, or they will assign functions to different devices. Because like, for example, when they will decide that their mobile phones will only be used for digital games, but then they will use their computers to do serious stuff, meaning they do homework on their computers so that they don't install any different game apps or YouTube apps on their computers. But very sadly, it's not working because some students told me that they feel really lazy to turn on a computer. So they don't even want to, because it will take a few minutes to, you turn on a computer and wait for everything to boot. But then it's so easy. Just go back to the phones. Okay, for your information, I've done 10 focus groups and only 2 young people told me that they quit. What did they quit? Okay, they just quit, not YouTube, just Instagram and Facebook because, okay, for Facebook, they found it really for old people. And for Instagram, they didn't want to check out too often because they felt really trapped. Because whenever there is a notification, they feel obliged to reply if they still have the app. So they just quit, but only 2 of them. And quite a few people told me that they would try to get out of the state when they felt that they were stuck in the digital media by fasting forward. To me, it seems not to be really a good strategy because it feels really strange. You can just not watch. Why do you have to fast forward? But then they do. And they would, like, for example, they say for Korean dramas, because the pacing is sometimes really slow, so they will use 2 times or 4 times speed to fast forward so that they can watch faster. And finally, some students told me that they would do something else. What do they mean? They will go jogging, they will play guitar, they learn to take care of plants, and they do cooking, many interesting things. But then the sad thing is that, say, for example, when they jog, they always have to wear their headset. So they are still online. They are still using different music streaming platforms for the music. And when they learn to play guitar, they go to, YouTube. When they want to take care of plants, they go to ask AI how to make sure that your plants don't die. So whatever they want to do, even though they want to do something else, they found that they are being drawn back to the digital platforms once again. So here, the dilemma is that everybody feels that they are stuck. You know, in my research, of course, I also came across young people who aspire to become online media creators, and they did have their own channels, but just one or two. But for the most young people I interviewed, they felt that it's very difficult to get really bored because they always have something at their fingertip. They can just go to their phones, their tablets, and their computers for something interesting or amusing. And then there is never a shortage of supply of information and entertainment, and then even education, because if they really want to learn something, they can just go online to learn it. And it's so easy. This is so quick. And they feel that they never have a moment of solitude. They never really get bored because this is a very friendly environment that always want more attention from them. But then this is exactly this constant attention and distraction that many young people realize that they are bored after all. Because even though our superficial boredom is addressed efficiently by all these devices, when they look back, they can easily loop their phones for hours and hours and hours. They may check out OneNote, YouTube, TikTok. The time is always filled up by something new and something interesting, more interesting than their own lives. And so when looking back, they feel that they have spent a few hours doing nothing. They could not recall what they have really done. Our concern is about how to enable young people or the next generations have a better life. What literacies really matter if we have a clearer look of the life road they are having. If people are feeling stuck, and then it means that they don't find meanings, because boredom is always closely related to a sense of meanings. If you feel that you are doing something really meaningful, you don't feel bored. And for young people, how to achieve digital well-being, how to acquire the ability to cope with the side effects of this permanent communication overabundance, over consumption, and also multitasking. I think this is a tough question for everybody, for educators and for researchers who care to make some changes to the digital environment our young people as well as we ourselves face today. So thank you very much again for having me today.